Suzanne. I am a writer, an author, a podcaster, and this is All the Woo, A to Z, with...
Hi, I'm Mychal. I'm a sommelier, tarot card reader, and former ballerina, as well as a podcaster.
So here we are towards the end of the year.
Yeah. Weird. It's always weird towards the end of the year.
Weirder this year.
I'd have to say probably yes. It feels weirder this year. But before we get into that,
We want you to join us at the Weird Table.
Weird Table, non-judgmental, our own thoughts, experiences, opinions, what have you with this, but also just, in general, non-judgmental zone where we invite you to come and just be entertained.
Yep. And drink with us. And what are we drinking?
That is an excellent, excellent question.
It's this close to the end of the year, so it's bubbles. So which one of our favorite bubbles have we revisited?
So I decided to go all out today. We're going to do literally my favorite bubbles, which are Vilmart Champagne. Fancy, fancy. They are delicious. And so, yes, that's what we are having.
With the good crystal.
Yes. Fancy, fancy.
All righty. So...
yeah. Okay. Weirdness. All right. So basically what we had on the docket for this episode was we had it simply entitled Calendars. And we went back and forth on what we wanted calendars to actually mean. And so we thought, first of all, we're going to go through some major things that are happening astrologically in the sky at this point in time as we move into the new year that, just get you off to a good start so that you have some kind of idea of what's happening. Yeah. But then also before we even get into that, we thought that we should tell you about a tool that we use often. We mentioned it, I think, in our very first episode of A for astrology, very briefly. But Suzanne, since yours is here and present, mine is not, I'll let you tell a little bit about it.
It's a custom astrological calendar. So every day you can know what is happening in mundane astrology, which is the world, but also what is happening in your personal astrology. So the personal astrology is a different color, and it's when you fill out the paper or when you fill out the form on the website,
because it's personalized too.
Yeah, you can make it as involved for as much of the planets and the transits and all of that stuff that you want to see. And yeah, it is your life on a page.
Yeah.
And so you can have an idea of, this is not a great day to have that conversation since I have Mars sitting on my sun or whatever it may be.
The Mars is sitting on I have a Mars return right now. Well, no, I think another great thing of how people can utilize this. So also something to note, these don't have descriptions in there, meaning that it'll tell you what the transit is. So it's very helpful, especially if you are learning astrology, to kind of learn how to kind of keep up with, know what is happening, when it's happening.
And it's a good practice for learning the symbols because it's all written in the symbols.
Right. But it's not like it gives you a written analysis of what that means for you. So that's important to note. But I do want to say, though, that a lot of people use them as also an astrology diary to kind of keep note of just kind of what the general feel of the day was for you, like what kind of happened, so that you can keep it to reference back to, especially for transits that take a longer span of time, or when it comes back around again, that you can see what you went through 15 years ago around that time when something similar was happening and transiting certain parts of your chart, right? You can go back and be like, okay, well, in theory, this is how it's supposed to affect me. But at that time, how did it actually affect me? How did I see that happening in my life? And then how maybe might that be affecting my life again in this way now? Like that's another great way to utilize it.
And I would say on the shorter end of things, because I am so lunar driven, for me, it took maybe 3 months for me to keep track of the moon's cycle through all of the signs to kind of gauge what signs, how I felt pretty, what's the word I'm looking for? Consistently. Such a shocking word for me. Can't even remember it.
Yeah.
but to see the consistent pattern of how different signs affected me.
Mhm.
And, and that also has to do with, what planets or excuse me, what signs are what houses in my personal chart. And to kind of go, okay, I feel this way in Aquarius.
Mhm.
Like this is consistently how I feel. So, you know what? I am going to make different decisions about how I interact with people during Aquarius, or this is my spiritual house kind of sign.
Right.
So even though it looks like I should be out and having a great time, I really do just want to be meditating and
Mhm.
all that kind of stuff. So the same thing, but just on a shorter time frame.
Yeah. What's nice too, as Suzanne had mentioned before, is that when the general astrology is triggering parts of your own chart, your natal chart, that it has that highlighted there for you so that you for sure know. Because I myself, I watch tons of different astrologers and like what they have, like what's going on for the week. And I have too many shows that I watch that are like that.
But that's because you crowdsource.
It's true. I do crowdsource, but sometimes different astrologers will say, "Oh, well, this one might be, or blah 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 blah." Might
Everybody has their own interpretation.
Correct. So this can be a nice tool to say, because it'll point out to you, like it may not be running over your
Hmm.
your, your planet or something, as I was stating off mic before, but it might be aspecting it and it's like
You're going to
communicating with
feel
it,
it.
and
Yeah.
yeah, you're going to feel it in some way, and it'll pop that up for you so that you know for sure, instead in case there's something you're not paying attention to, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And especially when it comes to like squares where it feels like those more than the others are places where you have to make decisions.
Hmm.
Like, okay, you have come to a turn.
Yes.
So things like that, it shows you and so we both have one.
Hmm.
We use it all the time. So an actual physical calendar that you can get yourself pretty much anytime.
Yeah. It
You
doesn't
can
have to be.
start the year whenever you want to.
Hmm.
But yeah, that's Honeycomb.
And I think it goes for 18 months,
You can
I
get from
think.
6 to 18 because I know the first one
Okay.
I got was 6 months because it was like,
Want
I
to
don't
try it out.
know, I'm gonna try it this, see how it goes.
Yeah.
And then I've been keeping mine because they are such great.
Oh, yeah. You can totally personalize it. You can personalize the size of it, not just for the length of it, but the size, smaller book versus bigger book. I think you can even do wall calendars if you want to do that. I'm pretty sure they have a lot of different options and especially if you are an astrologer yourself, you can choose the kind of setup that you want it to do. So there's that as well. Too
Yeah.
much information, but there you
So
go.
yes, many, many choices. So all of this to say,
Yeah.
getting one of these might be something you want to do because right now we have Mars retrograde
Ooh.
until February.
Mm-hmm.
January 1, the North Node is going to hit 0 degrees Aries,
Yeah.
which is technically the start of it is the start of the zodiac year.
Yeah.
But the North Node is, you know,
The eclipse seasons. Mm-hmm.
yeah, and it's also supposed to indicate like where your north node is when you're born is the direction that you're growing,
Mm-hmm.
and the south node is the roots of what you have been, kind
Yeah.
of thing.
What you've mastered and you now have to learn how to let go. Like stop using it as a crutch.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, yes, so that is going to be striking the beginning of the zodiac year, which I'm sure is going to bring a plethora of astrologers coming forward with interpretations.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that it's on January 1st is just kind of crazy.
Kind of weird, honestly. Kind of weird. That is not normal. Just so that you're aware. That's not the average of how that ends up kind of switching over. But yeah,
And then I think one of the reasons that all of the insanity about
anything,
all of the
all things.
otherworldly, shall we say,
Mm-hmm.
things is going to be expanding is because this whole conjunction between Saturn, the planet of responsibility, and Neptune, the planet of imagination, or if you look at it, irresponsibility, are meeting up in the spiritual planet
Yeah.
sign of Pisces. And that's been going on for a while, and I think will continue to go on for a while.
Yeah, I think it intensifies. It's like we're already where they would be hanging out with each other and influencing each other, but then they're going to become real good pals here in a little bit.
And the archetypes of these, so Saturn is basically father time, is the way that we perceive it. And Neptune obviously is supposed to be the god of the sea, but is very much about no boundaries, and everything is very, just think of it in terms of liquid and fluid and
Ether, like the other side, the undefined, right? So also having to do with a lot with spirituality for that reason. All those things that are unseen, those things that are, are hard to, it's not hard and fast, right?
And so you have Father Time, who's about as hard and fast and cyclical and rigid and regimented and systematic as you can imagine.
But he didn't always used to be that way.
Slogging, and may even have been feminine, slogging through an ocean. So the relationship between those two may not be entirely congenial.
Yeah, it could be more difficult. I will say that. But what I do find interesting too, because listening to other astrologers, which is, it's always great to listen to other people and their insights on it, because it, like so many other things that are of this nature,
education.
It's education, but it's always yes and to a lot of different things. And it just kind of depends on the lens in which you're looking at it through. For Saturn, like Suzanne was saying, Father Time, in my chart, Saturn is a big player in.
Oh, my sun is combust Saturn.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Like it's.
We know the Saturn.
We know the Saturn. Super, super with it. But when a reading that I had received and the way that it was kind of described to me, specifically focusing on that particular planet that I thought was interesting, is it's the father of time, or the timekeeper, in that sometimes it'll hold back information till a certain time when it's meant to be exposed. So it's like you could have tried so hard to do all this, or even not just information, but just like events. Certain events were being held back intentionally because there was like think of it as destiny. There was a destined time in which that was supposed to come into play. And so no matter if you were trying to make it happen before, it was all in vain, because it had a plan, and you could not alter that plan. So if you think of it that way, and then you get Neptune, who's like, woo, whatever, more a little loosey-goosey, I think, probably when it comes to that kind of thing.
My visual of Neptune is like the vampire Lestat, but not a vampire.
Yes.
Like hanging out in New Orleans during Mardi Gras.
Yeah.
In like 18 something.
Just feeling it. Yeah.
And just, just beautiful and louche, and and just leading everyone to the greatest party. But at some point they do have to get up the next morning.
Yeah. And also maybe other intentions are at play.
Like I said, not a vampire. I'm not saying Neptune's a vampire.
Yes. Well, no, but also that idea of not everything's really clear, right? It's as clear as mud, essentially.
And I think kind of like a reflection, you can sort of see in it what you want to see. And so when people talk about Neptune and Pisces sometimes being deceptive, I think the person who's doing the deceiving is the person who's doing the looking.
Yes. I think, too, what's interesting, outside of what their personalities of also kind of what they rule, too, it is interesting to kind of put it, where you have Saturn all having to do with laws, legality, government, those kinds of things. And then Neptune is very much of the spiritual, the other. We would even put aliens in this kind of camp at the moment.
She's going to put aliens in any camp.
I'm just saying they don't always get fair representation in this conversation.
But it's about to blow up because of this particular combination. So we have both listened to World Astrology Report.
Yes.
Who is an astrologer named Dan Waits.
Correct.
And he has a great episode that we are not going to just regurgitate.
Right.
That is kind of why things are about to get a little bit weird. But what he does, and I love this, both as a former reporter and a former person who did lots of research in history, is that he goes back into historical periods that mirror ours.
Yes.
And say, look at how this happened and look at how this happened. And we have the same ingredients brewing now. And one of the things is that the supernatural kind of is much more prevalent.
Yes. I also appreciate from his perspective too that what's going on or what's in play as well is that as things become disclosed per se, that you may not, and you probably should not take whatever's being handed to you at face value.
Yeah.
That may not also be the full truth and nothing but the truth.
Remember, Neptune Pisces has also got a little bit of a magician sort of illusion. Like, look at this hand so you don't see what this hand is doing.
Correct.
So, yeah.
Yeah. And he goes into great detail on that. But I think that we will see this also in other ways. So, yeah, there's the alien thing. But I think that this may also be why a lot of people feel like astrology is going to become more popular during this time frame. More metaphysical subjects are going to probably become more popular, more widely accepted. You'll see people who maybe would have been totally turned off to it before be more open to these kinds of ideas. So, yeah, it'll be an interesting time to kind of see.
And part of this is because we also have Pluto, who is another really heavy part of the chart, having moved into Aquarius, which is another very kind of open and live and let live mentality. And then, while Uranus is still in Taurus, it's drifting towards Gemini, which is another air sign. So another kind of big, give me all of your information, let me know all the things kind of energy. So all of these acting together are creating a brew where, as he says, it's going to about to get real weird.
Yeah, I think the high strange is probably going to really
I want that on a t-shirt. High strange?
High strange is probably going to be a thing. And it's just kind of cool if you think about it being like the first of the year, that this is how we're starting out the year. Because oftentimes when you look at charts, especially for people's birthdays and their solar returns and whatever it may be, what you're looking at is, what things look like at the beginning of the whole cycle that you're looking at. Like what's happening like right at the beginning of it, taking all that into account.
So really we should run a chart for January 1st.
Probably. Yeah. And kind of see what the whole year, because if all of this is playing a part here at the beginning of it, just imagine how it's going to influence like the rest of the year. Then we have like 12 more months of just like, what?
So, as Michael is fond of saying, let's just pop some popcorn.
Yeah. I'm planning on investing in some popcorn in different toppings. Yes. Yeah. It'll be real interesting, I think, to kind of watch out and see what's going on. But I will venture to say that given everything that we know so far, and even already it's proving to be true, I don't know that we're ever going to have seen anything like it so far this year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yes, that's what we have to look forward to in 2025.
Yeah. Should be fun. Should be lots of fun.
And the great thing that you can know, gentle listener, is we're going to be right there with you.
Oh, yeah.
Because we are going to go through A to Z again. But
oh, yeah,
just like the year is going to be wonky.
We're going to be wonky. Not just mentally. Sorry.
We are not going to go through it in order.
No. Okay. So our little fun zazzle that we're throwing in is that we will be at the end of each episode drawing a letter from basket.
I have a basket with letters in it.
Yeah, so we're not going to double up on any particular letter. We're making sure of that. But that will then dictate. So we're not going in order from A to Z. We will cover all the letters, but out of order. So there you go.
So the topics are going to be maybe a little bit more spontaneous.
True.
And probably involve even more aliens just looking at what's going on.
Maybe. I hope so. Fingers crossed.
So yeah, what else do we have to say about 2024? It was the first year that we did this.
That is true.
So
that's true. We should do a little cheers. That was kind of loud. No, this was 2024 was the birth of our podcast.
Yeah. And I think also in 2025, if we're given the opportunity, we are going to take the show on the road.
That would be great.
So
I don't know how, where, what that looks like, but we're throwing it out there.
We're just putting it into the winds of possibility.
Also, if anybody wants to be a guest, we could also expand by doing that as well.
Yeah.
So we're here for you.
So have a great North Node moving into, moving in. The calendar ends, but we will see you back on the 2nd of January.
Yeah, I know. So North Node, I think, moves into Pisces. So then the South moves into Virgo.
Well, the North Node will be at 0 Aries on January 1st.
Okay. Never mind. Well, no. Yeah.
Because it goes, then it'll move into Pisces.
Right. Yes.
It'll be at 0.
Okay. Anyway.
All possibilities on January 1st.
January 1st. New year. New year. All right. We're here for it.
All right.
See you next time.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
All the woo.
A to Z.